Okay, today's Irish tale is the ancient Irish tale of On the Sick Bed of Cu Chulainn. Okay, today's Irish tale, The Sick Bed of Cu Chulainn. The Sick Bed of Cu Chulainn, like numerous other early Irish sagas, is a compilation based on, several versions of the same story. The tale, in its earliest form, probably told of how a mortal hero, having fallen under a fiery spell, was lured by the fairy people to the happy other world, where he was healed of his malady and assisted the supernatural folk in their tribal feuds. In the present form of the story, the double visits of the fairy messengers to the ailing Cu Chulainn, the double account of Log's experience in the fairy realm, as well as other repetitions and inconsistencies, are the result of unskilled work of, the compiler and interpreter, of whom the oldest extant versions are due. Noteworthy also is the fact that there is, as in the wooing of Emer, Cu Chulainn's wife Emer plays a prominent part. Every year, the men of Ulster were accustomed to hold a festival together, and the time when it was held was for 3 days right before Simonius, and for 3 days after that day. Upon Simonius itself, and the time that is spoken of was the men of Ulster used to assemble in Megmorum, and they are used to hold a festival every year. Nor was there anything in the world that they would do at the time, except sports and marketings and splendors and pomps and feasting and eating. And it was forth that the custom of theirs, that the festival of Simonius was descended that it is now held throughout the whole of Ireland. Now, once upon a time, men of Ulster had a festival in Megmoran, and the reason for this festival was that every man of them should every Simonius give account of the combats that he had made and for his valor. It was their custom to hold the festival in order to give accounts of these combats, and the manner in which they gave that account was this. Each man used to cut off the tip of the tongue of a foe who he had killed, and will carry it in a pouch. Sadistic, I know, but hey, it's the ancient Irish. We tended to, like most ancient tribes, tended to not be peace-loving, and, we are a warrior tribe. Moreover, in order to make more great the numbers of their contests, some used to bring them with the tips of the tongues of beasts. And each man publicly declared that the fights he had fought, one man of them after the other. And they did this also. They laid their swords over their thighs when they related their combats, and their own swords used to turn against them when the strife that they had declared was false. Or was it that was wounded at? For at that time it was customary for demons to scream from weapons of men, so that for this cause their weapons might be more, able to guard them. To that festival then came all the men of Ulster. Except two. And these two were Fergus MacRogue and Conall the Victorious. "Let the festival be held!" cried the men of Ulster. "Nay," said Cu Chulainn, "it shall not be held until Conall and Fergus come." And this he said because Fergus was his father of Cu Chulainn, and Conall was, his comrade. Then Sketchna, "Let us use the present engage in games of chests, and let the druids sing, and let the jugglers perform their feats." And it was done as he said. Now, while they were thus employed, a flock of birds came down and hovered over the neighboring lake. Never were they seen in Ireland more beautiful birds than these. And, well, a longing that these birds should be given to them sighs upon the women who were there, and each of them bring the boast of the prowess of her husband at, well, bird catching. How I wish, said Ethan Concaber's wife, that I could have two of those birds, one for whom each of my two shoulders. It is that what we all long for, said the woman. If any should have this gift, I should be the first one to have it, said Ethan. It will also be noted that later in the story, Emer, Cu Chulainn's wife, this confusion results in the fact that this story is a combination of the least two more ancient accounts. Egbra, the wife of Cu Chulainn, that we have now do now, said the woman. It's easy for you to answer, said Lochthrum. The daughter of Ora and Aste will now go with a message from you that will seek for Cu Chulainn. She went then to Cu Chulainn. The woman of Ulster would be pleased, she said, if yonder birds were given to them by thy hand. Cu Chulainn reached for his sword, unsheathed it against her. Cannot the woman of Ulster find any other but us, he said, to give them their bird hunt today? This is not seeming thee to rage thus against them, said Lethbrim, for it is on the account that the women of Ulster have assumed one of the three blemishes, even the blemish of blindness. For their three blemishes, the women of Ulster assume that the crookedness of gaunts, that the stammering of their speech, and that the blindness each woman who loved Conall the victorious had accustomed to crookedness of the gait. Each woman who loved Cosman, the Samson Maca Comcaberson, stammered in her speech. Each woman in the manor who loved Cu Chulainn assumed a blindness of her eyes in order to resemble Cu Chulainn. For he, when his mind was angry within him, was accustomed not to draw in on one of his eyes so far that the crane could not reach it in his head, and would thirst thrust out the other so that it was a great cauldron for which a calf is cooked. Yoke for us the chariot, O Loch, said Cu Chulainn. At that Loch yoked the chariot, and Cu Chulainn went into the chariot. And he cast his sword at the birds, and with a cast of a boomerang, so that it flipped against the water, and their claws and wing, and seized upon all birds, and they gave him to struck among them women, nor was there any one woman, except Ethan alone, who had not a pair of those birds. Then Cu Chulainn returned to his wife. Thou art angry, he said to her. I am in no way angry, said Ethan, for I deemed as to being by me the distribution was made. And thou hast done what is fitting, she said, for there is not one of these women that loves thee, none of whom hast no share but from myself. None has any share in me but thou alone. Be thou not angry, said Cu Chulainn, if in future any birds come to Mermothan or Boran, the two birds that are, well, the most beautiful among those that come shall be thine. A little while after this, they saw two birds flying over the lake, linked together by a chain of red gold. They sang gentle song and fell asleep upon the men except Cu Chulainn. Cu Chulainn rose up to pursue the birds. If thou wouldst listen to me, said Log, Niall said to Emer. In this part of the telling, Emer is known as Ethan, like I had said before, so try not to get confused because this is of two tellings, and depending on translation, the name is spelled and sounded differently, but it is Emer, Cu Chulainn's one and only wife. Yes, Cu Chulainn did fuck other women, but this is for his wife is the only one that he truly loved. Thou wouldst go not against them behind those birds in some special power. Other birds may be taken by thee at some future day. It is possible that such a claim should be made upon me, said Cu Chulainn. Place a stone in my sling, O Log. Log thereupon took a stone, and he placed it in the sling, and Cu Chulainn launched it, but missed. Alas, he said, he took another stone and launched thus at the birds, but the stone flew past them. Wretch that I am, he cried, since the very first day that I assumed arms, I've never missed a cast, until this day. And then he threw his spear at them. But the spear went through the shield of the wing of one of the birds, and the bird flew away and went beneath the lake. After this, Cu Chulainn departed and rested his back against a stone pillar, and his soul was angry with him. And sleep fell upon him. Then he saw two women come to him. The one of them had a green mantle upon her, and the other wore a purple mantle folded in 5 folds. And the woman in the green mantle approached him. She laughed and laughed at him, and said that he gave a stroke with a horsewhift, and the other approached him, and she laughed at him and stroked him the same way. And for a long time they thus, each of them in turn, coming to him and striking him, until he was all but dead. Now we know this is not how Cu Chulainn actually dies. And then, well, of course, they departed from him. Now the men of Ulster perceived the state in which Cu Chulainn was, and they cried out that, well, he should be awakened. But nay, said Fergus, you shall not move him, for he is seeing a vision. And a little while after that, Cu Chulainn arose from his sleep. What has happened to thee? Said the men of Ulster, but he had no power to bid greet them. Let me be carried, he said, to the sick bed that is Tothbrack, not to Dulnorth, and nor yet to Dundalgan. Whilst thou wilt be carried to Dundalgan, thy stronghold, to seek for Emer, said Lo. Nay, he said, the word is for Toothbrack, and thereupon before him that place he was in Teethbrook until the end of 1 year. And during all the time he had speech with no one. Upon a certain day before the next Simonius, at the end of the year, when the men of Ulster were in the house where Cu Chulainn was, Fergus at the side wall of Conall the Victorious, and his head against Lagarde's red stripes at his pillow, and Ethan Ingor at his feet. And when there in a manner of man came to him, and he seated himself, well, near the entrance of the chamber in which Cu Chulainn lay. What has brought thee here? Said Conall the Victorious. No hard question to answer, said the man. If the man who lies yonder were in health, he would be in good protection to all of Ulster. In the weakness and his sickness in which he now is, so much more great is the protection that I have from him. I have no fear of any of you, he said, for it is to give thus man greeting that I come. Welcome to thee, then, and fear nothing, the men of Ulster. And the men rose to his feet, and he sang them the following verses. O Cu Chulainn of thy illness, the great will be thy length. Thy will heal thee if they were here, the daughters of Erna breath. Thus spoke Lambain in Maggoth, by the side of Leber the swift. Love hold fast hearts and long be joined to Cu Chulainn. Godly in truth would be the day when Cu Chulainn comes across my land. If he comes, he shall have silver and gold, where ye have much wine to drink. Could he but love me enough, O Cu Chulainn, son of Scythem, I've seen him in slumber without his arms, in very truth. 'Tis to Magmoran thou shouldest go on the night of Simonios. Without injury to thee thyself, I will send thee Lebran to heal thy sickness, O Cu Chulainn. O Cu Chulainn, of thy illness not great would be the length. Thy would heal thee if they were here, the daughters of Edinburgh. Would thou outthink themselves, said the men of Ulster. I am Angus, son of Edinburgh, he answered. And the men then left him, nor did any of them know whence he had come, nor whence he went. Well, then Cu Chulainn sat up and he spoke to them. Fortunate indeed is this, said the men of Ulster. Tell us, what is that happened to thee? Upon Samonius night last year, he said, I indeed saw a vision. And he told them that all he had seen. What should now be done, said Father Concobert. Said Cu Chulainn, this hast thou to do, answered Concobert. Rise, and go to the pillar which thou wert before. Then Cu Chulainn went forth to the pillar, and he saw that he and the woman of green mantle came to him. This is good, O Cu Chulainn, she said. It's no good thing in my thoughts, said Cu Chulainn. Wherefore most camest thou to meet me last year? It was indeed to do no injury to thee that we came, said the woman, but to seek thy friendship. I've come here to greet thee, she said, from Fanon, daughter of Albrecht, her husband, Manon MacLear. He has abandoned her, and she has thereupon sent her love on thee. My own name is Laban, and I have brought thee a message from my husband, Labarth, the swift-sword wheedler. And he will give thee the woman Fan in exchange for 1 day's service. To him in battle against Scousher Thornburg, against Eichert Lul, and against Eithron Inber. I'm in no fit state, he said. I contend with men today. That will at least be a little while, she said. Thou shalt be whole, and all that thou hast lost of thy strength shall be increased to thee. Lebrothen shall bestow on thee that gift, for he is the best of all warriors that are in the world. Where is it that Laban dwells, said Cu Chulainn. In Magmil, the plain of delight, said Laban. And now I desire to go to that land, she said. Let Lubber go with thee, said Cu Chulainn, that he may learn of the land from whence thou hast come. Let him come then. She and Leberg departed after that, and she went forward to Magmel, the place where Fanon was. And Leberg turned to seek Logr, and she placed him beside her shoulder. Thou wouldst never go home, O Lord, said Leberg. Wert thou not under a woman's protection? 'Tis not a thing that I have most been accustomed to this time, said Log, is to be under a woman's guard. Shame on the everlasting shame, said Lebarn, that Cu Chulainn was not herewith thou art. It were well for me, answered Lebog, if thou were indeed he is here. They passed on then and went forward until came to the opposite shore of the island. And there they saw a skiff of bronze laying upon the lake before them. And they entered the skiff, and they crossed over the island, and they came to a place where they saw a man. And he came towards them, and thus spoke Lebarthan to the man they saw there. Where is Lebarn, the swift sword handler? He held victorious troops, victories in his strong chariot. He stains with red the purple points of his spears. The men replied here thus. Lebarn, the swift sword handler, he is not slow. He would be strong. And they are gathered for battle that are making ready for the slaughter that will fill Megfigra. They entered into the place and saw 50 couches within the palace, and 3 times 50 women upon the couches. And the women all bade Leg welcome, and was in these words they addressed him. Welcome to thee, O Leglorth. Because of thy quest, Log, we also hail thee as our guest. What wilt thou do now? Said Laban. Wilt thou go without delay to hold speech with Fen? I will go, he answered, if I may not know the place where she is. That's not hard to tell. She is in her chamber apart. And they went there and greeted Fen, and she welcomed Lugward in the same fashion as the others had done. Fanon was a daughter of Albrabag. Ad means fire, and he is the fire of the eye. That is, of the eye's pupil. Fan, moreover, is the name of the tear that runs from the eye, on account of the clearness of her beauty, that she is so named. For there is nothing else in the world except a tear, to which her beauty could not be likened. Now, while they were thus in the place, they heard a rattle of Labar's chariot, and he approached the island, driving across the water. The spirit of Labar is gloomy today, said Laban. I will go and greet him. And while she went out and bade welcome to Labar, she spoke as follows. Hail to Labarthus, swift sword handler, heir to any army, small and armed with javelins. He hacks the shield and shatters the spears. He cleaves the bodies, and he slaughters freemen, and he seeks for bloodshed. Bright is he in the conflict to thee, who war against the host. Laban, hail! Hail to Laban, the swift sword handler, heir to any army, small with armed with javelins. Laban did not reply to her, and the lady spoke thus again. Hail to Laban, swift sword handler, ready in giving, generous to all, eager for combat. Scarred thy side, fair thy speech, strong thy hand. Kindly in ruling, hardly in judgments, powerful in vengeance. He fights off the hosts. Hail, Labarad! Hail to Labarad, sword handle and battle sword. Labarad still made no answer, and she spoke another. Hail, Laban, swift sword handler, bravest of all warriors, more proud than the sea. He roots the armies, he joins the combatants, he tests the soldiers, and he rises up the weak. He humbles the strong. Hail, Labarthus! Hail, Labarad, swift sword handler! Thou speakest not rightly, O woman, said Labarthus, and then he addressed her thus. There is no pride and arrogance in me, O wife, and deluding spell can weaken my judgment. We are going now into conflict of a doubtful issue. Deliverance service where the red swords strike in powerful hands against, the multidumerous and united hosts of Echern Uli. And there's no presumption in me, no pride and arrogance in me, O wife. Let now thy mind be appeased, said the woman. Labarthan to him, Log, the charioteer of Cu Chulainn, is here, and Cu Chulainn has sent word to thee that he will come and join the hosts. Then Labarthan bade welcome to Lug, and he said to him, Welcome, O Lug, for the sake of the lady with whom thou comest, and for the sake of him whom thou hast come. Go now to thine own land, O Lug, and Labarthan shall accompany you there. Lug returned to Ammon, and he gave news of what he had seen to Cu Chulainn, and to the others beside, and Cu Chulainn rose up, and he pressed over his hand over his face, and greeted Log brightly in his mind, and strengthened with him for the news that Log had brought him. At this point occurs a break in the story, resulting from the fact that, the narrative in its present form is made up of at least two earlier accounts. Into the grasp they inserted the description of the bull feast, that which Lug Redstripes is elected king over all Ireland. Also the exoration that Cu Chulainn, supposed to be lying in his sickbed, gives Lug to his duties of king. After this insertion, which has, no real connection with the narrative in the story itself, proceeds, but from another point of the thread is taken up at the palace, where Cu Chulainn has indeed awakened from his trance, but is still in his sickbed. The message to Angus appears to have been given, but Cu Chulainn does not seem to have met Labarthan for a second time, and he lies at Emin Macha, not in Tarprech. Erin has disappeared as the actor from the scene, and her place is taken by his his actual wife, Emer, Cu Chulainn's wife, and the whole style of romance is altered for the better. Even if it were not the want of argument for these two versions, we could see that we have two tales founded upon the same legend, but by two different hands. And at the end of the first and the beginning of the second is a like missing and gap filled the story of, election of Uhtred. So let's continue on with the story now. Now, as to Cu Chulainn, it has been related thus. He called upon Lug to come to him. Go, O Lug, said Cu Chulainn, to the place where Emer is, and say to her that fairy women have come to me, and they have destroyed my strength. And say to her that it goes better with me for an hour to hour to bid her come to see me. And the young men of Lug had spoken these words in order to hearten the mind of Cu Chulainn. Little indeed its use to a warrior, the bed where he lies in sickness. His illness is work of fairy folk, of women of Maeltorach. They have beaten thee, they have put thee into captivity, and led thee off the track. The power of woman has rendered thee impotent. Awake from thy sleep in which thou art fighting against the beings who are not soldiers. The hour has come for thee to take thy place among the heroes who drive their chariots to battle. Place thyself upon the seat of thy war chariot, then will come the chance to cover thyself with wounds and do great deeds. Whenever shows his power, then when the splendor of his glory shines, then thou must arise. Then wilt thou be great. Little indeed is its use to a warrior, the bed where he lies in sickness. His illness is the work of fairy folk, of the women of Maeltorach. And after that heartwarming depart, he went to the place where Emer was, and he told her of the state of Cu Chulainn. Ill has it been whence thou hast done, O youth, she said. For thou art knowing, as well dost yonder in the lands, where the fairy folk yell, yet no virtue of healing hast thou found there and brought for the cure for thy lord. Shame upon the men of Ulster, she said, for thou hast not sought to do a good deed and to heal him. Yet he in Compra thus has been feted, and had been Fergus who lost his sleep, and had been Conall the victorious whom wounds had been dealt. Cu Chulainn would have saved them. And she sang a song in this fashion. She sang it. O Lug Bralas, thou searched the fairyland many times in vain, thou treest long in burning thence, thy healing of the sun dashed day. Woe to the light-scorned Ulster men, neither the foster father or brother of Cu Chulainn has made a search through the wild world to find a cure for his brave comrade. If Fergus was father of Cu Chulainn were under the spell, and if to heal them there was need, the knowledge of a truth, then son of Data would never take repose until Fergus is found a druid who could heal him. If it were the foster brothers of Cu Chulainn, Conall the victorious, who was afflicted with the wounds, Cu Chulainn would search through the whole world until he found a physician to heal him. If long were the triumphant has been overborne in rugged combat, Cu Chulainn would have searched through the green meads of all Ireland to find a cure for the son of Cormac MacNeish. Alas, sickness seizes upon me too, because of Cu Chulainn, the hound of Conkelber Smith. The sickness that I feel at my heart creeps over my whole body. Would that I might find a physician to heal thee. Alas, death is at my heart, for sickness has checked the warrior who rode his chariot across the plain, and now goes no more to the assembly at Morton. Why thus he go forth no more from Erin? It is because the fairy folks that he lingered, his voice grows weak and dies. Mousies and year have all gone by, and yet asleep he is not taken. There is no one but him, not fair world doth ever come to his ears. O Log Mechrobonel. And of that she sang that song. Emma went forward to Erin, where she might visit Cu Chulainn, and she seated herself in the chamber where Cu Chulainn was. And thus she addressed him. Shame upon thee, she said, to lie thus prostrate from a woman's love. Well, may this long sick bed of thine cause thee to ail. And that was the fashion she addressed him, and she chanted this. Arise, O hero of Ulster, awake, joyful and sound, look upon the King of Ulster, how great he is. Long enough hast thou slept, it is the ill sleeping too deep, it is the weakness that follows defeat. Sleeping too long is like a milker of reputation. It is the lament of death, and it's of death's power. Awake! Sleep is resposed of thy sort. Throw it off, the burning energy. I've spoken much, but it's love that inspires me. Arise, O hero of Ulster. Arise, O hero of Ulster. Awake, joyful and sound. Look upon the King of Ulster. How great he is. Long enough hast thou slept. And Cu Chulainn at her word stood up. And he passed his hand over his face, and he cast all heaviness and weariness away from him. And then he arose, and went on his way before him, until he came to the enclosure that he sought. And in that enclosure Labera appeared to him, and Labera spoke to him. She strove to lead him into the fairyland. But what place is it that which Liber dwells, said Cu Chulainn. It's easy for me to tell thee, she said. Liber's home is over a pure lake, with troops of women congregate. Easy for thee to go there, if thou wilt swift Liber. His skill's arm strikes down hundreds, whereas he describes his deeds beautifully purple in colors. Where on the cheeks of the battle he shakes his head like a wolf in battle. Before thine blood-stained swords he shatters the arms of his important enemies. And he shatters the bucklers of the warriors. I will go not hither at a woman's invitation, said Cu Chulainn. Let Lorra go then, said the woman, and let him bring thee tidings of all that is there. Let him depart then, said Cu Chulainn, and Loth rose up and departed with him. And they came to Megloth, and to Berber, and over the fairy green of Emin, and over the far green figure the place dwelt Abran-Eb, which with him his daughters. Then Fen bade welcome to Log. How is it, she said, that Cu Chulainn has not come with thee? It pleased him not to come at a woman's call. Moreover, he desired to know whether it was indeed from thee that there comes the message, and to have full knowledge of everything. It is indeed from me that the message was sent, she said. And now, let Cu Chulainn come swiftly to seek us, for it is today that the strife is set. Then, although Loga went back to the place he had left Cu Chulainn, and Leber went with him, how appears his quest of thee, O Loga, said Cu Chulainn? And Log answered, In a happy hour thou shalt go, he said, for the battle is set for today. And it was in this manner that he spoke, and described the fairy world thus. I went in a twinkling of an eye to a marvellous country where I had been before, and reached a cairn 20 armies. And there I found Laubr of the long hair, and found him sitting at the cairn, and a great multitude of armies about him. On his head a beautiful fair hair, and he was decked with an apple of gold. Although the time was long since my last visit, he recognized me by the five-fold purple mantle. She said, "Wilt thou come with me into the house which tells Fable the Fair?" Now, two kings are in the house, Fable the Fair and Lobr. 350s of warriors are about them, for all of great number, and live in one house. On the right are 50 beds, and on the beds as many warriors. On the left 50 beds, and a warrior on every bed. The beds have round columns, beautiful poets adorned with gold. They gleam brightly in the light. With comes a stone of precious and bright, at the door towards the west, on the side toward the setting sun. There is a troop of grey horses, with dappled manes, and another troop of horses of purple and brown. At the door towards the east there are 3 trees of purple grasses, and from their tops are flocks of birds singing sweetly drawn-out song. For the children who live in the royal stronghold. At the entrance of this enclosure, well, is a tree, from which the branches there comes beautiful and harmonious music. It is a tree of silver, which the sun illuminates. It glistens like gold. And there are thrice 50 trees. At times their leaves mingle, and, well, at times not. Each tree feeds 300 people, with the abundance of food without the rind. There is well in that noble place a fairy mound. There you'll find thrice 50 splendid cloaks, with a brooch of shining gold to fasten each of the cloaks. There is a cauldron of invigorating mead for those use of the inmates of the house, and never grows less. It is a custom that it should be full forever. Yea, mead! There is a woman in the noble palace, and there is no woman like her in Erin. When she goes forth, you see her fair hair. She is beautiful and endowed with many gifts. Her words, when she speaks to anyone, have a marvelous charm. She wounds every man to the heart with the love she inspires. The noble lady said, "Who is a youth whom we do not know? Come hither, if it be that thou art the servant of the warrior Muthrin." I yielded to her request with reluctance, and feared for my honor. And she said to me, "Will he come, the son of the excellent Dusty?" "It is a pity that thou hast not gone, O Cu Chulainn. Everyone asks for you. Thou yourself should see how it is built. It's a grand palace that I have seen. If I owned the whole of Aran, the supreme sovereignty over its far inhabitants, I would give it up. The temptation would be irresistible. I would go live in a country where I have just been." I went in twinkling of an eye into a country where I had been before. I reached the cairn 20 armies, and there I found Laubr the long hair. The quest, then, is a good one," said Cu Chulainn. "It's goodly indeed," said Lord, "and it is right that thou should go attain it, and all things of the land are good." And thus further also spoke Log the Long, as he told his lovely fairy dwelling. There are beautiful women victorious, never knowing the sorrow of being of the vanquished. The daughters of Ad Abra, the beauty of Fen, deserves a glittering renown. No king or queen is her equal. I repeat that she has said to me she is a mortal daughter of Adam without sin. The beauty of Fen in our days, it is beyond comparison. I saw the gracious warriors armed with trenchant weapons and with garments of bright colors. These were not the garments of underlings. I saw the woman joyous at its feast. I saw the troop of maidens. I saw the handsomest of boys walking about the trees on the hill. And in the house I heard the musicians playing for Fan. If I had not made haste to go away, I would have got my hurt from thy music. I saw the hill where the houses stand. Erin Ingvar is a fair woman, but the woman I speak of now, would drive entire armies to madness. And Cuchulainn, when he had heard that report, went on with Libin to the land, and he took his chariot with him. And they came to the island of Lebr, where there Lebr and all women that were there bade them welcome. And Fed gave him an special welcome to Cuchulainn. "What is there now set for us to do?" said Cuchulainn. "No hard matter to answer. We must go forth and make a circuit about the army." They went then and came to the army and let their eyes wander over it, and the host seemed to them to be innumerable. "Arise, and go hence for the present," said Cuchulainn to Leberthon. And Lebert departed, and Cuchulainn remained confronting the army. And there were 2 ravens there, who spoke and revealed Druid secrets. But the armies who heard them laughed. "It must surely be a madman from Ireland who is there," said the army. "It is he whom the ravens would make known to us." And the armies chased them away, so that they had found no resting place in that land. Now, at early morn, Echlauli went out in order to bathe his hands in the spring, and Cuchulainn saw his shoulder through the hood of his tunic. And he hurled his spear at him and pierced him, and he by himself slew 33 of them. And then Sheshtarwaz assailed him, and the great fight was fought between them, and Cuchulainn slew him. And after that Leberon approached, and he broke down before those armies. And then Leberon entered Cuchulainn, and to stay his hand from the slaying, and said, "I fear now," said Log, "that the man will turn his wrath upon us, for he's not found a combat to suffice him." "Go now," said Log, "and let there be brought 3 vats of cold water to cool this heat. The first vat into which he goes will boil over. They have gone into the second vat, and none will be able to bear the heat of it. After he gone into the third vat, this water will be moderate heat." And when the woman saw Cuchulainn's return, and Fang sang thus: "Slightly the charioteer and the steps of the road. If he's beardless, it's because he is young. Splendid and coarse he drives o'er the plain in the eve of Ashvan day. There is his niche, his 2 cheeks, a red dimple of blood red, the green dimple of brown, dimple of crimson, dimple of light color. There are 7 lights in his eyes, it is a fact not to be. Eyebrows of brand of noblest set, eyelashes of chaff are black. He outstrips all men in every slaughter, he traversed the battle in place. There's no one as high and hardly blade, not one like Cu Chulainn. Cu Chulainn, it is thus comes hither, the young champion from Morthrin. They who would have brought him afar are the daughters of Arambreth. Dripping blood in long rent streams to the sides of love spears, highly proud and high for valor, woe be to him against. Long moreover bade the welcome to Cuchulainn, and she sang him as follows: "Welcome to thee, Cuchulainn, raving king, great prince of Morn. Great is noble mind, and victor's champion, a strong valor stone, blood red of anger, ready to avenge, the champion of valor of Ulster. Beautiful his complexion, and dazzle of his eyes, to maidens he is welcome. Tell us now the deeds thou hast done, O Cuchulainn." And Cuchulainn replied to her thus: "I cast my spear into the court of Erin Ombra. I do not know the path or of fame, whether it's good I have done or evil. Thou fair host of fairy red complexion on the backs of steeds, they pierced me upon all sides. The people of Manon, son of Lear, invoked by Agron Ipur, I heard the poem of Eithrin and the good friendship of his lips speak. If the man has spoken true, it is certainly won the battle. And throw that I threw. Now, after all these things had passed, Cu Chulainn slept with Fan, and he abode for a month in her company. And at the end of a month he came bid her farewell. Tell me, she said, to what place might I go for your trust, that I have been there, and they might trust in the yew tree by this strand that is known as Ilbra con Korachaka, Nurai. Now, word was brought to Ymer that of tryst and knives were wielded by Ymer to slay the fairy woman. And she came to the place of tryst, and 50 women were with her. And she found Cu Chulainn and Log, and they were engaged in the chess play, so she did not perceive the woman's approach. But Fen marked it, and she cried out to Log, "Look now, O Log," she said, "and mark that sight that I see." "What sight is that thou speakest?" said Log, and he looked and saw it was Fan addressed him. "Log, look behind thee. Close at hand, wise, well-ranked woman press upon us. Bright on each bosom shines the gold clasps, knives with gold edges wilted thy hold. As for the slaughter chariot chief's race, comes Fogo daughter changed as her countess." "Have no fear," said Cu Chulainn. "Thou thus met no foe. Enter through my strong ear with its bright set. I will set thee before me and guard thee from harm against women that swarm from Ulster's 4 quarters. Through the daughter of Fogo vows war against thee. Thou, her dear foster sister, she rouses against thee. Bold Ymer will dare no deed afford destruction. Though she raggeth against thee, for I will protect thee." This is not going to go well. Moreover, to Ymer, he said, "I avoid thee, O lady, as heroes avoid to meet friends in battle. Thy hard spear and thy hand shakes cannot injure, nor the blade of thine gleaming knife for wrath that rages within thee. It is but weak, nor can cause me fear. If it were hard, if the war my white rages, must be quenched by a weak woman's power." "Speak and tell me, Cu Chulainn," said Ymer. "Why hast thou laid this shame on my head? I stand dishonoured before the women of Ulster, and all women who dwell in Erin, and all folk who love honour beside. Though I came on thee secretly, thou I remain oppressed by thy might, and thou greetest thy pride in battle. If thou leavest with me not thy gain, what dear youth dost thou make such an attempt? Speak thou, Ymer," and said, "Should I not remain with this lady, for she is fair, pure, and bright, and well-skinned, and fit mate for a monarch filled with beauty, and can ride the waves of the ocean. She is lovely in countenance, lofty in race, and skilled in handcraft. Can do fine needlework, and has a mind that will guide with firmness." "Truly," answered Ymer, "the woman to whom thou cling is in no way better than am I myself. Yet fair seems all that is red, and new seems glittering that the bright what's set o'erhead. The sour are things well known. Men worship what they lack, and what they have seems weak. In truth, thou hast all the wisdom of time. O youth," she said, "once we dwelt in honour together, and we would so dwell again, if only I could find favour in thy sight." And her grief weighed heavily upon her. "By my word," said Cu Chulainn, "thou dost find favour, and thou shalt find it as long as I am in life." "Desert me then." "No." "Desert me then," cried Finn. "No," said Ymer. "It's more fitting that I should be deserted one." "Not so indeed," said Fan. "It is I who must go, and danger rushes upon me from afar." And an eagerness of lamentation seized upon Fan, and her soul was great within her, and it was shame to her to be deserted, and straightway returned to her home. Moreover, the mighty love that she bore to Cu Chulainn was a tremulous in her, and this fashion she lamenting, she sang this song. It is that we'll go on a long journey. I give assent with the great affection, though there's a man of equal fame. I would prefer to remain. I would rather be here to be subject to thee without grief than to go, though you may wander, to the sunny palace of Arambra. O Emer, the man is thine, and well must thou wear him, the good woman. What my arm cannot reach, that I am forced to wish well. Many were the men that were asking for me, both in court and the land in fieldless. Never with those did I hold a meeting, because it was that was righteous. Woe to give love to a person if he does not take notice of. It's better for a person to turn away, unless he is loved as he loves. With 50 women thou'st come hither, O Emer of the yellow hair. To capture Fan it was not well, and to kill her in misery. There thrice 50 during my days of women beautiful and unwedded, with me in my court come together. They'd not abandon me. Now upon this it was discerned by Madame McFadden that Fan, the daughter of Aber would engaged in unequal warfare with the woman of Ulster, and that she was like to be left by Cu Chulainn. And thereupon Manon came from the east to seek for Farron, and he was perceived by her. Nor was there any other conscious of his presence, saving Fan alone. And when she saw Manon McLear, Fan was seized with great bitterness of mind and by grief, and began thus. Behold the valiant son of Lear, from the plains of Ingwer, Manon, lord of the world's fair hills. There was a time when he was dear to me. Even if today he was nobly content, if my mind loves jealousy, affliction is suitable thing. It makes its way through without labor. One day I was with the son of Lear, in the sunny place of Donlibra. We then thought without doubt that we should never be separated. When Malcolm the Great One espoused me, I was a worthy wife for him. For his life he could not win from me. The odd game at chess. When Manon the Great married me, I was a wife worthy of him. The wristband of doubly tested gold he gave me as a price for my blushes. And with going over the sea, 50 maidens as many gifts, I gave them 50 men, without reproach as their companions. 4/50 without deceit, that they were assembled in one house. Twice 50 men happy and perfect, thrice 50 men fair and healthy. And seeing come over the sea hither, no errant person sees him. The horseman of crested wave, he stays not on his long boats. At thy coming no one yet sees, anyone but dweller in the fairy mound. Thy good sense is magnified with every gentle host. Though they be far away from thee, As for me, I would have cause for anger. Because the minds of women are silly, the person whom I love externally has placed me here in a disadvantage. I bid thee farewell, O beautiful Cu. We depart from thee with a good heart, though we will not return. Everything is good compared with going away. It is now time for me to take my departure, but there is a person whom is not a grief. It is, however, the great disgrace, O Lug, son of Rothber. I shall go with my own husband, because he would not show me disobedience, that he had not meant stay and secret departure. If you desire it, now behold me. Then Fan rose behind Manon MacLear as he passed, and Manon greeted her. O woman, he said, which would thou do? Wilt thou depart from me, or abide here until Cu Chulainn comes to thee? In truth, answered Fan, either of you two would be fitting husband to adhere to, and neither of you is better than the other. Yet, Manon, it is with thee I go, nor will I wait for Cu Chulainn, for he has betrayed me, and there is another matter moreover that weigheth me, O noble prince, said she, and that it is he that thou hast no consort of the worthy equal to thine, but such one hath Cu Chulainn already. And Cu Chulainn saw Fan, and she went from him to Manon, and cried out to Log, what does this mean that I see? 'Tis no hard matter to answer it, said Log. Fan has gone away with Manon MacLear, since she has not pleased thee. Then Cu Chulainn bound 3 times high in the air, and he made a great leaps towards the south, and thus he came to Tar Rochro. And there he abode for a time, having met no meat or drink, and dwelling there in the mountains, and sleeping upon the high road, and runs through the mist of Lusper. Then Emer went on to Aram. And she sought out the king Combra, and she told him of Cu Chulainn's state. And Combra set out his learned men, and his people of skill, and the Druids of Ulster to find Cu Chulainn, and to build him fast, to bring him with them to Aram. And Cu Chulainn tried to kill the people of skill. And they chanted wizards and fairy spells against him, and they bound fast his feet and his hands, until he came a little to his senses. Then he begged for drink at their hands, and the Druids gave him drink of forgetfulness. So afterwards he had no remembrance of Fan, or anything else that he had then done. And they also gave a drink of forgetfulness to Emma, that she might forget her jealousy, for her state was in no way better than the state of Cu Chulainn. And Manon shook his cloak between Cu Chulainn and Fan, so that they might never meet together again throughout all eternity.